Okay, we've got Chris back on Rethink Real Estate. We're talking about our planning session that we had only about a week ago, where we went through and reverse engineered all of our numbers. And we think that there's some serious relevance to the way that we can have predictive marketing within a real estate business. So going back and seeing the thought process that we went through and the numbers of which we analyzed from 2024 and what we think we need to do in 2025 based on the predictability of what we're doing could tie back into your real estate business if you are looking to grow. So hopefully this episode helps. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. Chris, 2025.
2025. We are a quarter of the way through this century.
We just spent the last week together doing some planning, and that's what we're going to go through today. We're going to do some predictive marketing and see whether or not you can predict things within your business, being real estate agents in their business, and making sure that we're diving and double clicking into the marketing side of the business, because we figured it out that from a listing perspective, definitely for our white label business, that was 65% of our listings came from email and 15% came from social.
Yeah. 15% came from, social mix of website inbound, stuff like that. We equated about 80% came from marketing as a whole for our white label business this last year.
And I suppose that any company in a growth perspective is that we like repeat and referral people within the white label space, considering we haven't been doing it very long in most of the marketplaces that we're in at the moment. That was about 20% of what we did, which I'm still pretty happy with, considering that, that most of the other markets are new and we're looking to grow it further. But the thing that I wanted to sort of dive into and see whether or not there was some parallels in people's real estate businesses, we reverse engineered volume of listings that we wanted to get or volume of auctions that we wanted to get. And we were able to take all the data from the past. Really, it was only 6 months that we had really effective data for last year when Chase and Matt had joined us. So it was really only 6 months of consistent data for social and also email as well. Granted that we had some problems with email sides of things and everything that a normal realtor I wouldn't expect would have those problems that we did. But it was funny how we could reverse engineer it and sort of understand how many, okay, this is the goal of listings, and then what do we have to do from ground zero in order to hit that, right?
Yeah. It's always nice to kind of see the year in review and then be able to see exactly how many listings came in through the door, especially from a white label perspective. But from an agent perspective, you could see it pretty easily. Like, here's how many homes that I listed. Here's how many homes I helped buy. And then where did all those leads come from? So, did they come from my marketing efforts? Did they come from word of mouth? And you can kind of reverse engineer that entire thing. And that's kind of what we did from this standpoint. Because of a lot of our listings came directly from email and marketing, we were able to equate that we can basically work back saying we want to hit X amount of goals for the future year. And then from there, we know about 80% of that, if we're just shooting for the same exact number that we did in 2024, 80% of that needs to come from marketing. And now how much growth do we need in both emails, social, money-wise, ads, everything like that, as well as new marketing efforts? How many do we have to bring in for 2025 and hit the ground running? So it's a really good exercise for pretty much anybody with a business to do year on year. But also now we've started flirting with the idea of going quarter on quarter from that standpoint as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that if we were to reflect on how we did business planning with a few agents as well, is that, keep in mind in California, a big year for some agents is 12 or 15 deals. So they're kind of probably listening to this going, well, how do I use that when we're not doing the scale or the volume or whatever it may be that we're doing? And there's a part of this as well that I think that, Chris, you and I have spoken about, and it's a little bit contradicting to what we just said in the sense that, we're reverse engineering to get an answer on how much we have to do. But all that to be said is that there is a part of this that you have to lean into the fact that, yes, you might have got an email from somebody, or yes, they might have picked up the phone and called you, or yes, they might have responded to a social message, but they probably saw an email or saw your signboard and saw this and saw that then got them to the point of reaching out, or got them to the, or maybe you reached out and then they're like, oh, hey, yeah, I know them, or oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know them, or whatever it is. So there has to be this other sort of, so, okay, you ready? Chris, I'm going to geek out on you here for a minute. Are you ready for this?
Go for it.
iRobot. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Will Smith?
Yeah.
Remember how they say ghosts in the system?
Yes. Correct.
There has to be, there's something from a perspective of what we do that is the ghost in the system of where did they actually see us, and trying to analyze it too much is not great. But I think that for us, we're trying to get like 80% of the way there. and then we can leave the rest to chance, essentially. I
Yeah,
think that's how you have to be, right?
yeah, there's a couple things with that because the 20% we're leaving to repeat referral, word of mouth, whatever it is from that standpoint, as well as unknown attribution is what I would basically call it as. Is we're leaving that 20% from that standpoint. We hope that number grows. So while
Mm.
most businesses would be sitting there hoping that they can attribute pretty much everything under the sun for their business, we're trying to actually grow the business. So that actually probably takes up anywhere from 40 to 50% of our inbound nature when it comes to all of our leads, because that means that we're growing in markets. We're becoming a household name. Our brand is becoming bigger. We're getting referrals. We're getting repeat customers. We're hoping that it kind of creates that snowball effect where we don't have to. It's not that we don't want to worry about attribution and where they come from. It's that we almost don't want to be able to account for it because we don't want to know, that an office meeting happened in San Francisco, and then Susie Realtor learned about us from Jack Realtor. Like she was having a tough time with the listing. She basically brought it up. She brought it up. He said, "Hey, I have a solution. I had a tough listing just like that. Same marketplace. I use these guys," and then they went with us. So that's what we're trying to actually increase,
Yep.
which would be almost be counterproductive to being able to predict your marketing efforts year on year.
Well, but we're a growing business though, Chris.
Exactly.
Like
That's
at the end
the
of the day,
point.
that's what, like, don't get me wrong. If you're listening to this podcast and you're saying, no, I did 12 deals last year and I want to do 12 this year, I just want to do the same, then hey, you know what? The predictive element of your business, might be cool to go through and sort of look at where it came from and where people came from and whatever. But, we're talking here about no. We want 80% growth within what we're trying to achieve,
Yep.
and we can't leave it to passive.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're just trying to do 12 on 12, I mean, I would say the same emails, same letterbox drops, same door knocks, same open houses, like try to replicate the entire thing. Obviously, you should probably still increase just based on chance because there's always a variability in any marketing and the market and everything like that. Maybe 2025 is a little bit slower than 2024. Who knows? Like we can't control a lot of the variables that are out there. So if you're just trying to stay status quo from year on year, I mean, do the same metrics that brought you success in the previous year. But if you're trying to grow, that's where it comes into the reverse engineering of how much success did you have when you sent out an email? What was your open rates? How many meetings did you get from that? How many meetings then turned into, listing presentations? Then how many listing presentations turned into actual listings and so far and so far. So I think that's probably the exercise that realtors should go after, which is similar to what we just went after, where we broke it all the way down from, we sent out almost 100,000 emails last year. What does that look like? Who did it go to? What were the topics about? What are the
Reply
open
rates,
rates,
what
reply
appointments, all that
rates?
stuff. Yeah.
Exactly, down to appointments, down to success rate of those appointments, down to we call it we layer in what I don't think most people do, but I think I get this from the agent world is from phone calls then into listing presentations. That would be the two types of appointments.
Well, so it's kind of like, Chris, like let's sort of lean into, because I was going through the numbers yesterday and you and I had a conversation about it because it's funny, in the room we were sort of thinking about different things and we've kind of overinflated our numbers a little bit and we've actually brought them back a little because we were a little bit bullish in some of the things. But where I sort of like the one thing that is the catalyst to us, that is the leading metric that determines what type of opportunities we're going to get, all comes down to appointments, right? That's what it comes down to. So in an agent's world, it could come down to price opinions. Now, that's not a listing presentation. It's maybe just, hey, why don't I pop by and I walk through for 10 minutes and provide you a report on your property of what we think it's worth in today's market. Doesn't mean you're selling or even considering selling. Or maybe it's not even that. Hey, why don't I just do a report for you and I'll drop it on your doorstep or I'll email it to you that gives you an opinion of what we think the home is worth. Maybe it's just a pricing opinion opportunity. And maybe that's the metric that we're driving to. And because you've got your existing database that you're farming, so to speak, and maybe it's just all just, hey, I'm going to give you a 2025 health check on the value, and I'm going to do that every 6 months so that then you understand what's happening and what the marketplace is doing. Maybe that is the metric, and how do we get there with X, Y, and Z? Because if we were to reflect and look on what we did, appointments, right? Now, we have a different layering approach to appointments. Once we get the appointment is typically with the listing agent, and then we have about a 70% conversion from that appointment to then getting in front of the agent and the sellers, okay? And then from the agent to the seller, agent and seller appointment to listing it as an auction is about an 80% ratio. Now, it's actually higher than that, but we're just trying to deal with the more volume we do, the lower those success rates will probably be just by default, right?
Yeah,
Now,
100%.
yep. Now, Chris, re-bringing that all the way from listing to then appointment with an agent and a seller to just the appointment with an agent to get them familiar with auction. Now tying that back into social and also the email side of it, going back and re-engineering that, we found out that we had Chris this year has to engineer data for 226,000 emails.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, we have to find 226,000 emails somewhere. That's the number that we think, if we keep every number the same, that will lead us to the successful numbers that we're looking to achieve in 2025.
Because if we looked at the numbers for 2024, we dealt with about 43,000 agents,
Yep.
right? And out of the 43,000 agents, they received 2 emails, not to mention the social collateral that they probably saw as well, which resulted in X, Y, and Z. So we took those numbers and we pulled them across to say, okay, now if we want to double, then we typically get a response rate of, we get a 39.4% open rate to the email.
Yep.
Then from the open rate of that email, we have a 3.34 from the open rate. Then to the response, we have a 3.34 response rate that leads to an appointment. That's what the number we used.
Correct.
Okay, so which all entailed said that we had a 0.13% email to appointment rate.
Correct. Like seller appointment. And so that's the big appointment that we care about. And again, that's whatever equates to your business that is directly, that's probably our last meeting before they turn into a listing for us. So whatever I would say your last step is in your business, well, how do you get there? And then what's all the trickle down effects from that standpoint? It should look like a waterfall, basically, like a giant funnel that's going the opposite way, upside down pyramid, if you want to do it, basically from your standpoint of what's the first point of contact all the way to the last point of contact before they turn into a listing for you. And then obviously what's a listing? So how many listings do you have?
The cool thing about this is that I love the idea of being able to predict this stuff, but it's going to be really interesting to see as we go through quarterly and we come together on those numbers and know where we're shooting from. Because let's face it, over the last 6 months, we've just been trying to find our feet. Last 12 months, really, we've just been trying to find our feet with the new team members, the new structure, the market dynamics, the election, all the things, the headwinds in the real estate marketplace that has been slower from a transaction perspective, everything, right? And now we've sort of come to this clean state of 2025, which most of us think it's a clean slate whenever we change over the year, but it's probably going to be a similar marketplace than what we've experienced previously. But that predictability, it'll be interesting to see how accurate it is going through the process of, hey, from an email perspective, is it working that way? And also from a social perspective, is it working that way?
And I think the good thing that we've done is we've kind of shot for the moon with a lot of our predictions and projections. Is we've gone for the end all be all, and if we fall down a little bit short of that, whether it's by email or by social, we have a lot of different. This is what we were talking about in our annual planning, is kind of diversifying our portfolio, diversifying our marketing approach, so that if something does take a hit in 2025, whether it's email from spam rates or whether it's email from Apple privacy laws or anything like that, or it's social based on them charging more money or whatever it is, you want to make sure that you have kind of a diversified marketing approach so that it balances itself out. It's almost like having an investment portfolio where, if the NASDAQ's up and something like that, or something else down, like it kind of balances each other out. So we see growth regardless in a bunch of different ways, which is why we're always looking to new approaches. We're talking about, in-person things. We're talking about more manual approaches. Little things like that go a long way when it comes to future-proofing your business and making sure you see year-on-year growth.
So, for example, 65% of our listings coming from email is an actual red flag in saying that. We could all say that, hey, that's great, but being so reliant on that portion of the business, we're trying to make sure that the other avenues are going to carry their own weight, as you said. I think that there's
on that a little bit. We all obviously want 65% coming from email, from a sense of like it's cheap. Like everyone thinks, oh, if you could send an email and it turns into a listing, that's awesome, because it's very cost effective for you instead of paying for social ads or paying for all these things. That being the case, it's reliant to a lot of things that are out there, and there's a lot of like almost underlying costs when it comes to running an email, whether it's your CRM platform, whether it's whoever's sending out the emails for you, whether it's your domain costs, everything like that. So there is money tied to all those things, which is why we're trying to get away from that a little bit. It also is more of a transactional element of the business that I think we're trying to get away from a little bit as well, which is trying to build a reputation, build a brand, build something that can kind of grow on its own day on day, year on year. Which year on year, you just have to send more emails to grow at that point, which is a lot harder at that point. Our goal would be to get it down to a third, like in the long run.
Yep. And I think the other thing that we found as well, Chris, that we really had to make sure stood up is that the volume of increase of growth to get to the income goal that we wanted to was pretty substantial. But then when we played around with the protection of our fee and we played around with the average sale price a little as well, it literally almost, and it wasn't doubling our average sale price and it wasn't doubling our fee or anything like that, just a few protective elements that we can have when it comes to protecting average sale price and being a little bit more strategic on that. And then also, making sure that there isn't a renegotiation on fees or anything along those lines, is that where it all came to is that like we drastically reduced the volume that everyone was going to have to be turning out. And everyone might say, well, why wouldn't you just keep the volume the same? Because we're not trying to put any more team members on. We're trying to get everybody within the team to a point of capacity, which we all admitted we're probably about 50% capacity at this point. So it's more so, how do we do less in order to get more, essentially?
And I think those protection of the fee as well as the average sale price is the thing that directly relates this to real estate agents. Like, there's so many real estate agents that take price cuts and they take fee cuts and everything like that, just to win the listing. And then you have other ones who are focusing on pretty much anything under the sun. They're farming, an entire like city, and they're taking anything they can get at that point, which I'm not saying turn down business or anything like that, but being concerted and being focused with your marketing efforts in certain locations helps you win in a lot of those things. So we're pulling in data for higher price points now. We're making sure we do a lot more efforts to people who sit in the upper echelon of luxury listings, just to basically balance out our average sales price at that point. Or we also have goals of having, one unicorn listing a month and everything like that, one unicorn listing a quarter, depending on the person. And so I think those are the things that can directly tie this podcast to real estate agents who are out there thinking on, how do I make sure that I grow, even if my numbers stay roughly the same?
100%.
You can grow by being protective over certain things.
100%. Either way, mate, I think that's some good insights there. Appreciate it. It's going to be a great 2025 for us, regardless of the marketplace, because we are in control of the conditions that we bring into our business. I think that's the one thing that I felt really comfortable we're leaving planning here. It also reemphasized, and Chris and I, have spoken about this multiple times, but just for the audience's sake, is that the getting together and planning element and the verbal processing that happened over the 2 days that we did that was invaluable. And I think that you and I have both probably missed that a little bit, because we all get so busy, but to actually bring everybody together and just sit in the room and just let ideas fly and get really creative, and then take the recordings and listen to the recordings and put the action items out in play, having that plan to put them into play has worked really well for us so far.
I think another benefit for agents who are listening out there would be the fact that we did planning after the holidays.
Exactly.
I think that was such a win across the board. Even if you're like a broker listening to this and you have agents and you're trying to do an entire team planning for your office or anything like that, or however you guys run your annual planning, I think after the new year is so much smarter than what we previously done, which we used to do it, probably like closer to beginning of December, honestly, just based on schedules and everything like that. And then you lose all the momentum, all the steam, all the, whatever you want to call it, energy that we have been able to drum up from just doing a planning right when we first come back in the first couple of days, and basically hit the ground running. So I think that's super smart. I think agents should do that as well. Take your time in the holidays, refocus yourself, and then when you come back out of that, do the planning in the new year.
Well, I also think that even there's an element to be said as well, Chris. You could do your planning in February, because then you don't have these delusions of grandeur coming in. That's probably one of the things. I might even go a week into things next year before we do our planning, so that we don't have any delusions of grandeur in the sense that, this is going to be a phenomenal year. It's just going to be hair on fire, amazing. It might make us a little bit more sober on what are the challenges we're going to face here. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
and the
it
North
could even do
American
that.
real estate market definitely sobers you up, usually in January, December.
Yeah.
So like you might be coming off the back of like feeling like you just got out of a 12-round boxing match and gotten beat up for
Yeah.
the whole time. So and then usually we always come out of it, Super Bowl time, February and stuff like that. That's when the market starts to pick up. That's springtime. So yeah. I mean, if you want to feel punched down, you can definitely do it then. I like the first week of January. I think it's good because I think you could put a lot of the foundational pieces in your business while things are a little slow, and then once it hits the ground running, like who knows if it starts hitting the ground running first week of Feb, like you might never do that planning at that
Yeah,
point.
that's true. That's true. Yeah. It's like planning to work out in the afternoon. I'm an incredible negotiator with myself by the end of the day.
Yeah.
No. You deserve not to work out, Ben. You
Yeah.
ate well today, which is bullshit anyway. But anyway, thanks,
Perfect.
mate.
Yeah, thank you.
So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.